What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Establish the Run's NBA DFS Injury Analysis Show. I'm your host for the day, Sam Jaffrinia, making my injury show debut, and of course, joined by the one and only Mike Gallagher. How you doing, Mike?
Doing good. Got a hike in. You couldn't make it. You weren't feeling all 100%, but had Brody with me and digging through all the expirings. We're going to go through a lot of hug watch. We already had a trade today. The Jazz trading away an Italian and getting one back in a draft and stash. You don't see that too often. So yeah, we'll talk injuries, and then obviously a lot of the teams on the slate today are on the trade. Players are on the trade block, so we'll talk about that. We already took Kevin Knox out, which has shifted the rotations quite a bit. So we'll talk about that and talk through some other situations that we're going to get because it's going to be a pretty hectic day. I probably shouldn't have went hiking, but I'll be up for a while and make up for it.
There you go. Nice 7-gamer today for this Wednesday, which by Wednesday standards, I guess on the lighter side. But let's get right into it. We'll start in Cleveland, where Imani Bates, Ty Jerome, Isaiah Mobley are all out, and Tristan Thompson is still suspended. Darius Garland and Evan Mobley not on the injury report. We saw them get another slight boost to their minutes last game. What are your notes for the Cavs?
Nothing really to talk about other than the minutes. Evan Mobley ticking up. We saw that 28-24 when he returned, and now he's up to 28. Maybe he gets to 30. Probably doesn't need to get to 30 with Washington, who could be missing some players for possible trades. We'll talk about that. Jared Allen, all-star snub narrative possibly going on here. Gets the best matchup to do it against a team that's worse than the NBA at limiting offensive rebounds. And then Darius Garland, somewhat surprisingly, got pretty full minutes here after he was limited. There was talk they were going to raise him, but he had that Q tag for his bad knee, the one he injured in college. So I was surprised to see him get up there. But nobody really on hug watch unless someone comes calling for Sam Merrill for shooting or something like that. But really none of these rotation players I don't think are going to be too highly coveted unless the Cavs have something big cooking. And should note that they were interested in Simone Fontecchio, according to some of the Cavs beats. And apparently a lot of people were. So interesting that he picked up so much buzz.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing to note, too, on Garland and Mobley, their sub patterns were exactly the same last game. So whatever limit they are or aren't on, I would expect their minutes to be pretty similar in this one. So, yeah, we'll see what they do with the two of them. And then we move on. They're playing Washington Wizards, where Isaiah Livers remains out and Marvin Bagley is out again. What are your notes for the Wizards?
Yeah, so mildly surprised they went to Eugene Omoyuri as the backup 5. I expect that to continue. Brian Keefe really talked him up. He's been pretty good. We saw him with the Pistons be a guy is capable of guarding 3 through 5, and I think that really Keefe is more of a defensive-minded guy. I think that he's kind of feeling him, so I expect that to stick. Everything else should be the same, assuming they're whole. Now they may not be whole because we've got plenty of Kyle Kuzma trade rumors. Tyus on expiring, DeLon on expiring. Gafford's had some trade rumors. Maybe someone wants to come for Shamet. I've heard some Kispert rumors. So there's a chance that over the next few hours, this team gets really, really thinned out. We know DeLon should be traded. There is a report, not from like the higher up, the Woj Shams of the world, saying that they did want to kind of get off. Obviously, this team is quite bad. So yeah, we'll see what this team could look very different now than what it looks like in like 5 hours.
Yeah, for sure. And should have noted before, too, Kyle Kuzma, obviously off the injury report. You're looking at that box score. Without him, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yep.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. It'll be interesting to see.
ESPN changed their freaking thing, man. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah.
I'm like all backwards. It's my bad.
No, all good. But then we saw when Kuzma was in and Bagley was out, they had mixed in some small ball in that game. And Kispert actually had played 30 minutes off the bench. So something to watch for tonight. Like you said, Eugene probably, still a good chance to get in there, but maybe they go some extra Kispert again with him back, and then we can move on to the next game. Toronto at Charlotte. We start on the Toronto side, where RJ Barrett is off the injury report after he sat out their last game. Jonte Porter is questionable, and Gary Trent is probable. What are your notes for the Raptors?
Yeah, we're going to get RJ back. Manuel quickly was playing pretty full minutes, returning from his minor injury. I really love his matchup today. Obviously, the matchup is about as good as it gets against the Hornets. So certainly expecting IQ Gary Trent, assuming that probable tag's okay, and assuming he is not traded. Get to that in a second. Scotty Barnes RJ Barrett and Jakob Pertl. And then the bench, Chris Boucher's toast, obviously Dennis Schroeder. Grady Dick picked up a pretty big offensive role. Still, after the game, Darko had kind of, bashed his defense. They gave up 138 with ease, but especially the third quarter. Brandon Ingram, I think he had 5 threes in the third. I planted Zion. I planted the wrong Pelican that day. But anyways, yeah, expecting those guys. Jordan Noir sniffing in there. But again, the headline here is, are they going to trade Bruce Brown? He has a team option, kind of unusual for a guy with that contract. Gary Trent Allen expiring, that expiring, Jordan Noir expiring, and can Garrett Temple get on his 13th NBA team? So definitely Bruce Brown, perhaps one of the hottest names after. I feel like the teams who are going to try to get DeJounte are going to have to settle for Bruce. That's kind of where Bruce kind of fits market wise. So Bruce probably not going anywhere today, assuming DeJounte doesn't go anywhere, which again we'll get to. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. But definitely a team that we know is trying to sell, given that they traded 2 of their best, arguably 3 best players when OG and Pascal headed out of town.
For sure, we'll be looking closely at them during trade watch coming up. And only note I'll add is it seems Grady Dick is pretty firmly in the rotation now at this point as their 9th man. And I think they just run 9, but they could mix in Nora as a 10th. But pretty straightforward for now how things will go. And then we'll move on to Charlotte, who they're playing, where LaMelo Ball and Mark Williams remain out. Cody Martin and Frank Ntilikina are questionable. And Gordon Hayward now questionable after he hasn't played in seemingly forever. What are your notes for Charlotte, Mike?
Yeah, I think Hayward's going to be limited for sure. It's just a matter of if they're going to start him. We saw last game against the Lakers size, Steve Clifford opted to go with a bigger lineup as he kicked out Bryce McGowan's to run some Leaky Black. Leaky Black didn't really get much, basically had opening rotations to start the quarter, and that was pretty much it there. And then they really ran it pretty tight, which has been a pretty strong trend of running the other 4 starters in PJ Washington. The question would be, are they going to start Gordon? I don't know. But it's just had a pretty big role. He's been 14, 15 drives the last couple starts, really breaking down the defense, which Clifford likes. So I wouldn't be totally surprised if they start Ish. Probably, Brandon Miller. Cody. If Cody Martin's back, I would expect him to start. Maybe if Cody doesn't play, maybe they go that route. And then Miles Bridges, who I'll talk about in a second, and then Nick Richards. And I think Leaky still is in their rotation. We saw a couple games ago he kind of cracked and stayed in there. I think that is going to continue. Nick Smith should still be in there. And then JT Thor is going to go bye-bye. So that's mostly the main guys. But again, this team could be trading players. Hayward, he's back, expiring, a lot of buzz. We'll see. Possible buyout candidate because his contract's so big. Miles Bridges, pretty good contract, but do people want to trade for it? He has veto power on this trade. Noteworthy there. You mentioned Frank Ntilikina. He's on an expiring. Book Knight on an expiring. And I mentioned in our Slack that I'm going to say over-under expiring 20 and a half times. That's going way over.
Yeah, that was a bad line. That was a bad line.
Yeah, bad line. Maybe I'll mix it. And then, Cody, I think pretty coveted player just because he's an on-ball guy. I could see someone coming knocking on the door because they should be full sellers. They've been pretty reluctant to sell. So could see them empty some moves up here. And then I got to note Brandon Miller. He has been on fire. This last few games, he's been scoring. Getting my stats up here. There we go. He is 32, 5, and 3 in his 3 February games. He's first in front court touches on the team, first in touch time, first in drive. So he has all the roll, all the shots. He's out rolling Miles Bridges, who also has a pretty substantial role coming off a career high 41 for him. So yeah, those are the 2 guys. I don't think Gordon Hayward's really going to cut into them from a minutes perspective. Maybe a little bit. Maybe we don't see 40, but he'll just kind of piece it together. And I think it's gonna be a pretty hard cap on Hayward. I think I'd be pretty surprised if he played more than 22.
Agreed there. And yeah, it's just total wheels up for Brandon Miller right now. I mean, last 2 games, it was 35% plus usage. You see in this game, he only played 33 minutes, but, that was limited to foul trouble in the first half, which, that's kind of been a thing for him. For a guard, forward, I should say, he does get in a lot of foul trouble. But, games where Charlotte stays in it and he avoids the fouls, I mean, I think, high 30s is where he'll be most games like that. And like you said, I don't think Hayward is going to affect much for his roller minutes. So with that, we can move on to our next game. The Golden State Warriors at Philadelphia 76ers. We start on the Golden State side where Chris Paul and Gary Payton remain out. Andrew Wiggins is probable to make his return after missing last game. And Draymond Green is questionable. So what are your notes for Golden State, Mike?
Yeah, back to back, and you mentioned, I'm going to start with Klay Thompson. They're in a back to back, and I'm expecting Klay to sit tomorrow. Steve Kerr said after this presser they had to find Klay some minutes. I'll get to the injury stuff, but Klay Thompson not closing again. When they were shorthanded, they didn't have Wiggins in this game, and he still couldn't close. He lost closing minutes to Guy Santos. So ultimate levels of down bad. There's been trade rumors on him, expiring deal. I don't really think that's I don't think anything's gonna materialize there, but it's pretty interesting to see Klay Thompson, the golden child after Steph, pop up in trade rumors there. But yeah, expecting Wiggins, who didn't miss much time, and injury didn't look that bad. Steve Kerr didn't even know if it was like ankle or foot when he got interviewed after the injury, so expecting quite confidently it'll be Steph. Klay still will start. Wiggins, Kuminga, and then I think if Draymond starts, so getting the Draymond knee contusion, possibly a back-to-back sit spot. I think that's on the table. I think they would just go to Kevon Looney here, maybe to go to Trace Jackson Davis to keep him off the bench. But they're using Draymond as a center, and that led to Trace Jackson Davis getting nuked, and which was kind of coming. This has been pretty clear, really, since the day Draymond earned his suspension. Steve Kerr has talked about him being a guy that is going to use as a center spot, and should also note this four-man tandem with Pods, Steph, Kuminga, and Wiggins. They've been awesome, man. So I think that they're going to kind of. I think Pods is going to find minutes regardless. So the starters plus Pods, Moody's in there. We'll see if Guy Santos could kind of squeeze in there with Andrew Wiggins back. And Dario Saric got pretty booted. They're just because Kuminga's playing so much. Kuminga, should note him. Just some stats on him while he's kind of going off here. Let's see. He is in his last 10, 25, 7, and 2 on 61, 54, 80. He's shooting lights out. He's 11 and 19 on catch and shoot, 87 effective field goal percentage on 19 catch and shoot in that span. 3 dribble stuff. He's shooting the ball great, even when he's putting the ball on the floor. I know Dink hates that. So completely wheels up for Kuminga. That's kind of we were hoping they would get someone to improve them for the second half. Turns out it's just Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, just mega minutes, mega role, and they need it. And like you said, just the back end of the rotation after, the starters, the 5 and Pods. I mean, you see, Lester, Quinones, and Santos played the most minutes off the bench. And, it's not clear with Wiggins back if they just go their normal, Moody, Saric in there, Looney. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Lester and Santos stayed in there. So some uncertainty with how they go after the top guys for sure. And if Draymond misses, gets a little more questionable too. So we'll see there. And we'll move on to their opponent, the 76ers, where Embiid obviously remains out. And then DeAnthony Melton, Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington all out again, while Tyrese Maxey, Danielle House, and Marcus Morris all questionable. So quite a lot going on for the 76ers. What are your notes there?
Yeah, Maxey didn't go through shoot around. Not a good sign. The illness is running rampant. We saw Tobias have multiple illnesses stints. Paul Reed, I'll talk about him. He's getting over it. So this is just kind of going all around the clubhouse here. Major flowchart vibes so we know if Maxey's in, he'll start. If he's out, just him, it'll be Patrick Beverley starting. But I think there's a path to Patrick Beverley starting anyways and picking up Steph duty, because we saw Daniel House start last game. He's questionable. We see Marcus Morris start at times. He's questionable. They don't have Rocco. These are all these guys that started power forward. They don't have Nick Batum. They are like on option 6 of this iteration. So I think assuming Maxey's in, I think they would just start Beverley. And I think Maxey's out. So if Maxey's in, I think if the other 2 forwards are out, if House is in, he's starting. If House is out and Marcus Morris is in, I still might think they might even start Beverley, just because they would want to they don't think they want Oubre chasing him around. So I think there's a chance Beverley could start if House is out. But it might even be Springer. They might want to keep Beverley off the bench and just have Springer chase him around. Springer's kind of back from the dead. We've seen his ankle kind of be a non-issue. He's been running longer stints. So he'd be a candidate to start as well. But it's all a mess here. I hope that kind of laid that out here. That we should talk Paul Reed. He did media today for the first time really since he's been sick. Said he's been feeling a lot better. We saw his minutes get really cut down on Saturday with only 15. After that Saturday game, Nick Nurse said that he was still feeling ill. We saw that still kind of cap him a little bit. He played kind of poorly. I thought that the illness wasn't the main reason why. I thought he just played like crap in this Dallas game. They got abs. They're getting killed, man. I'll talk about some stats in a second. But so I think that covers the injury stuff. Want to talk some notes on the 76ers and their defense. They are getting killed on perimeter stuff. They're giving up some of the most catch and shoot stuff in the NBA. They are 49.3 points per game on catch and shoots in the last three. At reference point, the Heat allow 35 per game. So they're beating the Heat's number one by 15. They're getting killed on off-ball stuff. That could be Klay Thompson's music. Maybe he survives there. And then Hug Watch. I'm going to say this is all expiring, so this only counts for one if you had the expiring tickets. Tobias, Morris, Rocco, he's out. Batum, he's out. Cork, he's out. Or he's in, but he could be be out of there. He's in there. House, he's expired. There's another one. Oubre, KJ Martin. They like major rotation. So if they put together a deal and they dump chips at somebody they want to get, there could be a pretty big and we could be getting some Tre'Quavion Smith and Ricky Council fours, and it could be funny. But we know Daryl Morey's trying to get a big swing. It feels like none of the big swings are going to happen today. I think they're just going to kind of find your Simone Fontecchios and those guys.
Yeah, we'll see there. And just a note, if Maxey does miss, like you said, kind of leaning that way, Tobias and Oubre just massive roles with there's just not a ton of usage guys on the team to take from them. So it'll be something to keep in mind. All right, we'll move on to the next game, the Atlanta Hawks at Boston Celtics. We'll start on the Atlanta side where, some trade spotlight on them. But DeAndre Hunter listed available. Clint Capella remains out. And DeJounte Murray was a late ad with a questionable tag for lower back tightness, which may or may not be the actual tag. What are your notes on the Hawks?
Yeah, this is, Trade Watch 101. I'm sure everyone got the quote tweets out with when this came out here. DeJounte, highly the most high profile player on the trade block, expected to be traded by multiple people. So, of course, that pops up today. New injury, though. He's been listed with hamstring injuries before. So, yeah, if you wanted to play the Trade Watch game, you certainly can. But we won't go there. So he's obviously the most. We're naming all these E words, but DeJounte is the one that matters the most. If he doesn't play for trade or for injury, would expect Bogdan to get the start in that situation. So that'll cover that mostly. Pretty straightforward. They'll maybe bring in West, maybe bring in Trent Forrest, those guys there. So still no Clint Capella. Obviously, Onyeka Okongwu played pretty hefty minutes. They did not go small, somewhat surprisingly, mainly because they just gave Okongwu so many minutes and they let him close. So I think he'd be looking at a pretty heavy role regardless. Trae Young, matchups tough. He's going to see Derek White there, but he's been pretty good, against teams like that because Boston does funnel a lot of shooting to him. Expecting DeAndre Hunter to come off the bench. They're going to be, quote, smart with his minutes. We saw him get sat in a back-to-back. He actually crushed in this game, had 27 points in 19 minutes, couldn't miss. So expecting him to still come off the bench. They're running a pretty hard cap on him. So I think that they're just going to kind of run with that. Sadiq Bey kind of out of his slump. Obviously, Jalen Johnson will be looking at, pretty big minutes here regardless. Couldn't really shoot the ball, but, gave him he had just had a really tough assignment, was guarding Kawhi a lot. Will be DeJounte the headline of, trade/hug watch today.
For sure. And then, like you see in this box score, it's the first game without Capella, which we kind of thought there was a chance or decent chance we would have saw some small ball, but they just ran OO and Fernando, the full 48 at center. So still think there's some chance they make some small ball, but obviously seeing that first game. And then Hunter, obviously his minutes, the big thing to see. I would imagine he gets some boosts from that 19 he got last game, but can't imagine they really push him past low 20s with how slow his ramp up is. So
they're gonna, quote, be smart on him. So pretty much expecting 2 to 3 until he's full. That's how I would expect it to go.
Makes sense. All right, we'll move on to the Boston side, where pretty clean except Drew Holiday is questionable. Jaylen Brown is off the injury report after he missed their last game. What are your notes on Boston?
Yeah, we've seen Drew get this elbow tag. This is like the, hey, we may want to manage you tag, in my opinion. So we've seen a number of players start for him. But we know Hauser started for him last time, but Al Horford didn't play in that game. So I think Al Horford's going to start if Drew can't go. Again, this is just a maintenance thing. So I'm pretty sure he should be, he's not, I'm pretty sure he's not hurt, but they could definitely sit him here. So pretty straightforward. This would alter the matchups though. Oh, I got audio. Sorry, I got the audio sound from that. Yeah, so I think so. Horford would actually help Jalen Johnson from a matchup standpoint because he would have to guard Horford instead and not have to guard Tatum or something like that. So I think it would help Jalen Johnson if Drew sat. Yeah, but other than that, pretty straightforward. We'll see pretty good minutes, and this is, we've been calling Atlanta, Coors Field NBA because their offense has been outrageous. So in the last is it? Yeah, last 6 games, they've allowed 137. I'm sorry, they've scored 137. And they've allowed 133. That's 8 points higher than the next highest team, and then another 7 for the next highest team in that span for allowed. It's just insane. It's just Atlanta is just giving up point after point. We've seen, just the Luka 73 ball and just tons of just monster games here. But isn't Boston big blowout risk here with 11-point spread?
For sure. I thought you laid it out well there. And like you said, too, whenever one of these, the main starters miss Horford, they usually just throw in there. Would expect the same if Drew missed. We saw Hauser at the beginning of the season, when one of the guards are forwards, but really lately it's just been Horford. So would guess that's the case. And from there, we can move on to our next game, the San Antonio Spurs at Miami Heat. We'll start on the San Antonio side, where pretty clean on the injury report. Only out tags are for the G League guys. So what are your notes for the Spurs?
Yeah, nothing really to talk about injury-wise. His rotation's been pretty solid. I haven't really heard Pop complain in a while. He's had the presses are like going over a minute now, so he's in a pretty good spirits here. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama's role has been huge. He couldn't make shots down the stretch. Really a credit to the Cavs defense there. Really good matchup for Devin Vassell. Miami really just funneling 3-point shots. So I think Vassell could have a pretty big game. The minutes are pretty solid there. But yeah, we know this rotation is pretty solid. They continue to start Julian Champagnie. We do have some players who are worth noting on possible trade who are somewhat rotation players. Doug McDermott, he's an E-word. Jetty Osman, also E-word. And then Devontae Graham, not in the rotation, not an E-word, but he's also on the mix to get traded. So that could thin things out. We'll see if that could find somebody more minutes here, but definitely a team that I expect to. There's been a lot of Doug McDermott buzz just to give teams another bench shooting piece, so keep an eye out there, and that could maybe open up some minutes for some of these younger guys.
Yeah, it makes sense. And just looking at this box score here, you can see Vassell, the only one, only guy who played over 30, and he's played really strong minutes lately, getting mid-30s pretty much every single game. And this game was second night of a back-to-back. They were down, and they were still letting him in towards the end. So I think Pop may be more open to pushing these guys. And then Keldon, you can see off the bench. I mean, just not great. Champagnie playing more than him. When he was first coming off the bench, he was a pretty good bet for mid to high 20s minutes. But lately, we've just seen some not great floors where he's getting low 20s. I mean, one game last week, they threw him out in garbage time. So it's not great times for Keldon, unfortunately.
Your guy.
So, my guy, unfortunately, yeah. So hopefully things will look up soon, but not great right now. And let's move on to their opponents. They're playing the Miami Heat, where pretty clean coming up. They're on the second night of a back-to-back, and only injury for them is Haywood Highsmith is out for personal reasons. Caleb Martin listed probable. Haywood Highsmith booted out of the rotation last game anyway with Duncan back, so don't think his absence affects much. What are your notes on the Heat?
Yeah, we were debating whether to give Haywood Highsmith a half minute or 1.5 minutes. So Miami solved that problem for us today, and we just took him out of projections there. So yeah, Caleb got a little dinged up yesterday. Expecting him to go. Expecting him to start. Coming off really one of the most impressive wins. They've been just they've been defensively they've been really good. It's because their zone. They've been running zone at about 30 possessions a game. I lost my spot here. Yeah, this huge win from them. They've been, I think, 0.86 per possession on zone defense in their last 6 games, I think. So that's been really effective for them. Yeah, big win. We're pretty much locked and loaded here. We never to get Terry Rozier. Tyler Hero, who lost minutes to Josh Richardson, keeps taking minutes from people. Kicked out Haywood Highsmith. We saw him take closing minutes from Terry Rozier when they were falling behind against the Suns. Took minutes away from Hero here. Bam's playing minutes have been down a little bit because they're healthier. Jimmy's been playing great. His handling rolls up. His usage is up. His shooting's up. His 3-point rate's up. Everything's kind of up. Jimmy's kind of hit his stride here. We'll see if the back-to-back possibly affects him here. But yeah, starting is going to be the same. Duncan, Kevin Love, Josh Richardson, and then Juan Wick, Jaime Jaquez. So we kind of know this 9-man, and they may add a 10th. I don't think so. because they did kind of keep the minutes somewhat in check yesterday.
For sure. Yeah, that note on J Rich, really good because you see, he leads the bench of minutes here. And when they first got Rozier and they're kind of running that 9-man, we thought he was the odd man out, and he
He
was
was
that
dead.
game. Yeah, he was. And lately he's just, whatever it's taken, he's found his way to minutes. So like you said, he's booted Highsmith out. Last game played more than Heroes. So seems like a pretty safe role for now as long as he continues to play well. I mean, you see last game 3 for 3 from 3. So definitely a wrinkle in this rotation to see how J Rich
Yeah,
fits in there.
they lined him the first day he was out of the rotation. We had him for like 8 minutes, and I
Yeah.
mentioned to our Discord, we're like, hey, bet this J Rich stuff. It's probably going to void, but if he goes in there for a minute for a defensive possession or a minute of garbage time, you're going to get a free cash. But it was void. Sad.
For sure, yeah. All right, we can move on to our next game with the New Orleans Pelicans at Los Angeles Clippers. We'll start on the New Orleans side, where Zion and Najee Marshall are both listed questionable. What are your notes for the Pelicans?
So Zion's had this Q tag really since he had that foot scan. He's been playing through it generally, so expecting him to play. The minutes have been pretty solid. Obviously, they were down in this game because they had blowout, but we've seen him hit mid 30s. He's looked fine to me. Still had the handling role, getting the touches earlier in the clock that they've been talking about. So I'm expecting him to play. It's Zion, so you're never too safe, but expecting him to be in there. Najee got a little dinged up. I think he had a fall like late in the game. I think he's doesn't really matter. They could maybe condense, play a little bit smaller here, but they would need him. I think he'd be an important piece. They'd want to have some wing defense against the Clippers. So if he's in, that would be an important piece. That would help Dyson Daniels. They would basically move Dyson Daniels to more of a 1-2. I would say to more of a 2-3 for substitution. So that would open up Jose Alvarado if you can't play. And then the other highlight is Brandon Ingram, man. Just a lot of commentary saying that they spent extra time on film. Focusing on more 3-point shots. They've been really up in the 3-point rate over the last handful. It's usually been CJ or Trey Murph whose minutes haven't really hit. So they've been asking Brandon Ingram to shoot more. That's been trending up a little bit lately. Obviously, the career high 8 in this just complete bloodbath. That was quite easy to come. We took a couple Raptors unders just thinking we had a good chance at garbage time to keep minutes down. So shout out to us there. But I think we're pretty good spot here. I think Najee should be in, but if not, as I mentioned, they'll probably just play a little bit smaller. If Zion's out, and if that scenario happens, then it's also a national TV game, not a back-to-back. Like it checks all the boxes he should play. But if he doesn't play, it'd be Trey Murphy starting for him.
Yeah, makes sense. And one little note for the back end of the rotation. We saw Hawkins. He was pretty firmly in there for a little while. It's like, 9th, 10th man. And we've seen Alvarado the last couple games now come for his spot. So doesn't affect too much, but something to look out for as it seems, Alvarado might be back in the rotation and Hawkins exiting. But we'll see how they go about that. And then obviously if, one of these Q tags miss, should that benefit both of them and make them both firmly in the rotation. And now we'll move on to the Clippers, where clean injury reports, rotation pretty easy. We're one of the easier teams for us for sure. What are your notes on the Clippers?
Yeah, we should note. Let's start with Paul George. We know he has that groin cap on his minutes, but they played 32 and 33 in both games of the back-to-back when they were both on the road. That's a pretty good sign. He's kind of coming back into form, so we're giving that a little bit of credit. I think we have him at 32 or 32 and a half or 33. I think he may have 35s in him here. Like a national TV game, we see a little bit longer rotations. And a game against the Pelicans, I think it would speak volumes. They're the top-ranked Clippers. They're in first place in the West, kind of a miracle, given where they were, early November when everyone wanted to dump on them, myself included. So, expecting quite confidently. And they're also going to get Zubats back. We've got a pretty hard cap on him for injury, returning off a calf strain. Soft tissue requires a multiple game ramp up. So we have that. And then this game could play pretty small. We know Larry Nance kind of comes in there. I could see them playing smaller. We've seen Russ kind of close in small ball lineups. Norman Powell close in small ball lineups as well. Both of them closing in small ball lineups over Terrence Mann. Definitely a chance to go small. So we've got Zoo pretty suppressed. Trade stuff, not too much to talk about in this game. Tice Plumlee, maybe. I don't think so. They're just no cost, and they need the front court depth, especially with Zoo hurt. So I think that like Brandon Boston, maybe, but he's not in the rotation. So really nothing to note. Pelicans, we saw some Herb stuff pop up. I'd be pretty surprised if you get. I think that's kind of like big swing kind of a trade. They wouldn't trade unless they're getting like a kind of a blue chipper. DeJounte or something like that, which makes no sense to me. Anyways,
Mhm.
Joval also expiring if they had something big in the works there. Najee also expiring. And then Jose, who they're not playing really. They don't really need him. Maybe some team wants to get him to give him like some picks. To give another team front court depth. He's on a friendly team option next year. So Pelicans got a lot of bodies, but I don't think it's really going to affect the high end guys.
Yeah, and then like you said, should have mentioned too, Zubac off the injury report. He had made his return. He had played only 18 minutes in his return, and would expect him to be limited again, although probably more than 18. I'd guess probably like 20 to 23 minutes.
Yeah, we got him at 20. I said a minute ago. We got him at 22 because we think there's a chance that. Yeah, I mentioned because we think the game might go small. If he was not in a game where we didn't have small ball fears, I think we'd probably put him like 24, but we put a couple minutes off that too, just because they don't want to play his minutes anyway. So not only are you playing small because it kind of is advantageous, but that's another way to keep his minutes down.
For sure. And Tice should probably go away with him back. And then other sneaky thing to look at is the Coffee Powell split. Coffee's been coming on a good bit lately, and mostly at the expense of Norm. So we'll kind of see what that split. I still expect most games Norm to be ahead, but at least something to keep in mind there. And then we'll move on to our last game of the day, the Detroit Pistons at Sacramento Kings. Obviously, a lot going on the Detroit side, trading Kevin Knox today and getting Simone Fontecchio in return. As far as their injury report for this game, Bojan is Q, Cade is Q, Isaiah Stewart remains out. A lot to get to here, Mike. What are your notes for Detroit?
Yeah, let's start with the trade. So we'll talk about Fontecchio another day, but no Kevin Knox is a big deal. He was projected to start today, and I lost my box score. No, I didn't. Okay. He was expected to start today, so we've got him out, obviously, and I'd expect this trade not to get Fontecchio cleared. So that leaves you with a pretty big question on who starts. Isaiah Stewart's out if you missed that. So there's a couple options here. We saw the last time they were in this predicament, they went to Mike Muscala. That was against the Cavs. I think this is a little bit of a different matchup, given the way the Kings play with so much pace. It makes very little sense to me that they would start Mike Muscala. So I think that we're going to actually see Asar Thompson get the start and probably actually guard De'Aaron Fox, which is interesting because this team's been terrible on ball. We saw Asar was, the first 10 games, everyone was like, oh man, Asar's the next lockdown, the next Jade McDaniels with some ball skills, all that. And that's kind of subsided. Monty's kind of doghoused him, but this seems like a spot where Asar Thompson should start and maybe play a lot. I'm curious to see if what his price is like for DFS, because I think he could play a pretty good bit, and maybe he even plays garbage time. The spread's 13 right now. That could even go up if Bojan or Alec Burks, who gets traded. I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, I think Asar is in a pretty good spot here for minutes. We were debating minutes just before we came on. I'd probably be like 26 for Asar. I think he has 30s in him. And I feel pretty good he's going to start. They don't want to put Cade on ball. Ivy just can't do it. So I think this is kind of the spot for Asar to get in there. And then we got to mention Alec Burks. He's a guy on an expiring deal. Could see him get traded today. So that's something to keep an eye on. Monte Morris, he's been in the rotation. He could probably get traded, expiring as well there. And then Muscala is also expiring. Gallo, Weissman, RFA. No one's going to sign him to an offer sheet. Joe Harris, Killian, RFA. No one's going to want to sign him. So they have like people who are getting minutes. Killian had the rotation, I should mention, because Marcus Sasser has leapfrogged him. But yeah, so that covers the trade stuff. And then back to back here, they play at Portland tomorrow. So if you're playing the tank game, you'd think you'd probably rather sit guys tomorrow. So I think Cade and Bojan are in. Not confident. Those tags are, I would say, positively a back-to-back related one. Maybe they sit one today, one tomorrow. If Cade's out, do they go Sasser? Do they go back to Killian? Killian seems like he's dead. Do you have a lean on who they would start there? Say Bojan, they play Bojan today, playing to sit Cade tomorrow. Who do you think would start at the point?
I mean, it's tough to say. Obviously, Killian's been out for a little while now, but I think they would still give him the token start if Cade was out. But we've seen even when he starts, he can play like 10, 12 minutes. So I don't think that guarantees any role. But I agree with you as well. I think Asar will be the one to start in place of Knox. Now it is Monty, so never too confident in anything with them. But we saw, beginning of the season, he was getting 30 plus pretty consistently. Obviously Bojan was out and they're a little more shorthanded, but I wouldn't be surprised now if they just kind of throw him out there and just let him go in a way. It's, you look at this bet, they ran like a 12-man last game, and it's just, Wiseman 5 minutes, Montaigne 9 minutes, like you said, a trade candidate. So I wouldn't be surprised if down the stretch we see some big Asar, games as far from a minute standpoint. Now, what he does from performance standpoint, that's another question, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to just letting him go. But obviously the Q tags between Cade and Boyan will tell the story of what they expect from the rotation there.
Yep.
All right, and then we go on to our last team of the day, the Sacramento Kings, who are a pretty clean injury report, except Sasha Vezenkov is questionable for what feels like the 10th straight game in a row now. What are your notes for the Kings?
Yeah, we saw that 7 to 14 day tag, and they keep queuing him over this whole 7 to 14 day, and they never gave us a re-eval. So there must be some sort of disconnect with the medical team. So I don't think he's going to play there. So pull up the box here. They finally finished up a tough road trip here. They won the road trip, I think 3-2. So pretty good road trip with some pretty tough opponents in there. And actually, let me pull up one more thing. So we're pretty much going to get the same situation. We do have Malik Monk coming alive. He was kind of left for dead, was not even hitting like 20 minutes for a bit, but he's kind of come on. I think that they needed him more in that matchup. They may not need him as much here. Pretty much straightforward there, expecting mostly the same rotation there. But I do have to highlight my cover boy for today. For matchups, I went with Domantas Sabonis because a little bit of a matchups, obviously awesome. But got to go narrative here. Back in 2022 of December, Jalen Duren said it's not that hard to guard Domantas Sabonis. And then we saw last time early this year for 37, 10, and 13 in 38 minutes. So hoping the Pistons don't gut the roster so we don't get garbage time. But I'm expecting a really big night out of Domantas Sabonis today.
Yeah, makes sense for sure. And obviously big spread here against the Pistons. And, expecting Vezenkov to be out once again. I agree with there's got to be some kind of disconnect for this to be happening. And real quick, we got a trade. Xavier Tillman traded to the Boston Celtics in exchange for 2 second-round picks. So kind of like the trade for Boston. Low risk, and I think a lot of us like the potential for Xavier Tillman. So solid upgrade for them.
Well, I hate it. He's on my 30-man team, and now he's dead. So I kind of thought that was going to happen. Sad sight. But this is kind of the first domino for the Grizzlies, right? We know Luke Kennard's on the block.
Yeah.
We saw trade Jamison Cook. Plays 30. Is he alive?
Yeah.
How much longer do they sit Jaren Jackson out? They're saving Scottie Pippen Jr.'s two-way days. He's got on a prorated for him. So he probably has like 30 days, I'd say, ballpark, that he could play. So we're getting pretty close. So they're saving him pretty much for post break to play him as much. Vince played pretty well. So yeah, Gigi Jackson season, probably rotation lock. And again, I think Luke Kennard is gone. We'll see if they can get off Conchar or anybody else. So yeah, the Grizzlies are clearly rebuilding. Bane probably has no point to come back after his week. So yeah, all those Bane bags that we were looking so good are now empty. I think we're done with Desmond Bane here, sadly.
Yeah, sad times for the Desmond Bane fan club for us. But yeah, I just, like you said, I think this is just the first domino for Memphis, and should see some more deals coming up for them. Maybe today. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll get more.
Got
two already today.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll see what the rest of the day brings us. Appreciate everyone tuning in for this Wednesday edition.
Yeah. So if I could pop in here, so we're gonna do a trade deadline show tomorrow. It's gonna be myself, Mark Dankenbring, possibly more people. We're gonna go through at the deadline. So when the deadline hits on 3 Eastern, we're gonna be with you guys going through bets, maybe some bets that you and I last time we went hiking and there was a big trade. We hit all the monies. We bet against the Raptors and they traded OG. And it's been like a thing. So we'll talk about some betting angles that day, talk about some rotations going forward, fantasy pickups, all that good stuff for you guys. How this affects the 6-man market, because I think Dallas can maybe ship Tim Hardaway Jr. There's been a lot of buzz there. So we'll talk about some betting market stuff, that night, prop stuff, all that good stuff. Should be a lot of fun. As you could probably tell, I know all the expiring deals. I'm fully prepared. So I always love trade deadline. I'm not hiking tomorrow because I gotta be ready. Gotta soak in all the rumors, aggregate everything I can. Should be a lot of fun. So we're still gonna do the injury show tomorrow. at the normal time, and then we're going to probably have about a half-hour window. Probably not. It's actually a huge slate tomorrow. Uncharacteristic. Usually the NBA doesn't put a big slate on deadline day, but look at that, man. 9 games. So we're going to have to fly through the injury report, take a little break, pop back on, and then we're going to go until we cover all the deals. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of them. These Utah, they're clearly selling, so we'll go through all that. I'm working on the depth charts. We'll have all that updated for you guys, so it should be really cool. I'm excited to get down and do it. Hey, we're trying to give you guys the best content for betting season long, all that stuff. So all we ask is that you hit that like button, subscribe, maybe tell a friend. Maybe they want to make some money. We're making some money on the props, but we've been running pretty good on these bets that we give out on the show. So yeah, hit subscribe. Press it, like it. I always say give it an Eskimo kiss, assuming your mouse is clean and your nose is clean too, or whatever. But we'd appreciate it if you hit the subscribe. And then also behind the paywall, we still got everything kind of cooking here. It'll be myself and Gary Hartman again breaking down what should be a very chaotic slate. Again, more trades probably coming to affect the rotation. So we're gonna get some low-owned, high-owned, low guys to break through, and it should be pretty fun. I love this number of game slate. I got matchups. Gary will be out there to break down all that good stuff. Still having the player props. We are inching to 130 units on the season, so we're still running pretty strong on the props. And we're just wrapping up the season. We've been bad. Usually we hit February and start taking off. So still a good time to hop in the prop streets. Shout out to all the guys in there giving a lot of good information. So that will do it. Sam, excellent job. Thought you crushed it. For those who don't know, Sam is usually the guy who does first runs on projections for our minutes, which is really, really, really hard. One of the hardest jobs on the team. So shout out to you. How do you think you did? How would you rate your performance today?
I hope I did okay. Thought went smooth. So obviously got one more.
Crushed, man.
Thanks, man. One more next week with as we continue to adjust for life without Drew. But really enjoyed joining you on the show, and look forward to the next one.
That was great. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll catch you tomorrow for the injury show, same time. Then hang on. We'll be right back with the trade deadline show. Talk to you guys later. Have a great day.